and to get to that answer, I looked at some of the latest data on apps being used by teenagers. I did some unscientific polling on Facebook, and then I sat around with a bunch of teenagers over dinner and asked them to vet this list for me. And two things emerged. One is teenagers are like every group in the fact that there's individuals and disagreements among them. So some apps everybody agreed on, and then I'd say something like YouTube, and somebody would say, oh, I spend all my time on YouTube. And the next person would be like, YouTube is for boomers. Nobody our age uses YouTube. So there was definitely some discrepancy in there. The other thing is, overall, teenagers are social creatures. So they're doing a lot of messaging apps, a lot of social media apps, and then also a lot of photo and video sharing apps as well.
So what are some of the apps that parents are probably familiar with?
Yeah, probably the most popular one is TikTok. We've all heard about that. It's been in the news. For people who haven't checked it out, it is user-generated short-form video, usually with music or comedy involved. It's very entertaining. It's very quick. And that's probably the most popular one for teenagers these days. But other apps that you've probably heard of that teens are using include Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, which is a messenger app owned by Facebook, and Spotify is another popular app among teens.
As you looked into the apps that are popular with teenagers, were there any surprises, any that parents would probably not be familiar with?
I don't know if many adults are familiar with Discord. And Discord is it started off as a gaming chat app so that gamers could talk to each other, but it was so easy to use that people started using it for other topics as well. And even recently, Discord has come out and said, we're really just about building communities. We've moved past just gaming. So that's a popular one you may not have heard of. VSCO is another app that teens are using. It's a lot like Instagram. It's a little bit lighter on the social side and a little bit heavier on having photo editing tools built in. So it's for the more serious photographer. And then Reddit was a surprise to me. Not that it's not a popular website and app, but I just didn't realize teens were using it. And when I asked them like why or how are you using it, they love the fact that they get information and opinions on just about any subject under the sun.
Apps, of course, aren't the only thing that teenagers are using when they're on their phones, and a lot of parents are distressed by how much time their teenagers do spend on their phones. Any thoughts on that general topic?
So I think the first thing to remember here is that we're in the age of COVID, and a lot of teenagers aren't able to see their friends or be in big groups of friends like they would be at this point in their lives. And so it's normal, maybe even healthy, for them to be trying to socialize online using a lot of these messenger and social media apps. The other thing is, of course, I hear a lot of parents complaining about the amount of time their kids put into their screens. And yet they're on their screens too. They're posting and complaining about it on Facebook, or they're texting their friends or taking and sharing photographs. So if you want to see a change in your kids, you should really model the behavior you're after. So maybe you should be putting down your phone when your teenager comes to ask you a question. That's a great thing too. It's not the end of Western civilization. And I'm a child of the 80s, and I remember growing up, and I spent every night on the phone. Now, admittedly, the phone was attached to the wall. It was a little different, but I was also spending a lot of time watching TV. So the tools are different, but teenagers are pretty much the same. And the last thing I might recommend is, if you do see your teenager spending what you think is too much time on the phone, ask them if they want to go play catch or go for a bike ride or cook a meal with you or anything just to get them off that phone, and the two of you can spend some quality time together.
Rich, we could probably do a pretty good segment on what teenagers think of the time their parents spend on the phone. Flip this whole debate.
100%.
And Rich could probably do a pretty good segment if he took it by decade.